He's the Chicago kid. So I want to find out who Matt Nagy is and if we're going to like him here or not. So, DP, how you doing, buddy?
Craig, great to be on with you, man. Congrats on being back on the fan.
Thank you.
C-Mac, good to meet you via
nice to meet you, Danny. Thank you.
All right, so when Matt Nagy left Chicago, and I did some reading on this today, you guys hated his guts, burned in effigy, he's the worst, blah, 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 blah. Right. Do you still feel that way, or did Matt Eberflus take the stink off of Matt Nagy?
Yeah, it can always be worse.
Yeah,
it can always. That was like the defensive version of Matt Nagy, and that's worse because it's an offensive game. You know, the Matt Nagy experience in Chicago was fascinating because at the time it was so refreshing and such an exciting hire because the Bears had literally never hired an offensive coach with play calling experience in the history of the franchise. And so, like, even though he didn't really have play calling experience, because Andy Reid, we later found out, was kind of lying. He was like, yeah, no, Matt Nagy was calling my plays. It's like, it was always really Andy Reid. It was exciting. It was refreshing. He was young. He was coming from what we would refer to as the Andy Reid tree. At the time, 8 of the 32 coaches in the NFL were either Andy Reid or had directly worked for Andy Reid, much like John Harbaugh. And so it was really exciting. And then he won Coach of the Year, and then everything after that was a disaster.
Was he criticized for, like, play calling, for late game management? Like, what was the fair criticisms about him when it came to play calling?
Well, so Mitch Trubisky didn't work out. Right. That was the biggest thing. Like, you know, the Bears drafted Mitch Trubisky instead of Patrick Mahomes, and that was a mistake. And Matt Nagy was supposed to be the guy to develop him. So, like, more so than play calling, you know, this is the guy who is your top offensive man in New York, and he is tasked with developing Jaxson Dart. It's very similar in terms of, you know, it was when Trubisky was drafted, he was backing up Mike Glennon. It was the last year of John Fox. Then he's supposed to sit for a year. He ends up not sitting. They play him. And, you know, he ends up being really stunted in his development. And so more so than play calling, it was, you know, not being able to figure out a way to maximize Trubisky. And the criticism was, and I think it was a fair one, it was that Matt Nagy's coaching story was really interesting. He was like literally selling real estate when he got a gig as basically a grad assistant for Andy Reid in Philly. And he worked all the way up to whatever his top title was in Philly. I'm fuzzy on the details now. But then Andy Reid brought him from Philly to KC. And when he got the job in Chicago, Andy Reid said on my old radio show that he was the most talented head coaching prospect he had ever had. And remember, at the time,
it's a lot.
It's John Harbaugh, it's Sean McDermott, it's Doug Peterson. It's like a lot of guys who had been really, really successful. And so it was a super exciting thing. And then I'll jump ahead here and we can get back into specifics. But like when he left Chicago, I was really disappointed that Nagy went right back to Kansas City. Because to me, it seemed like he had only been with one guy. And he could have really used some Sean McVay tutelage, some Kyle Shanahan tutelage. Like, it's not just like an old school traditional West Coast offense, which is what Andy Reid ran. And so when he ran right back to Andy Reid, I was like, man, why not try to like diversify your background? And now the only places that he's had success have been with Andy Reid, and Andy Reid is the play caller. Right. Andy Reid is the grand poobah of everything. Like, how empowered was he really? Now, Andy Reid would say he was empowered to try to get his guy a job. He's very loyal, but he really wasn't, we found out later, terribly empowered with play calling and stuff like that in Kansas City. And so I think he tried to fit a bit of a square peg into a round hole with Mitch Trubisky, trying to fit him into a traditional West Coast offense as opposed to building a system around your quarterback. And that was the problem with Matt Nagy, was that he only knew one thing and he wanted to do it his way, even though he had players that didn't necessarily fit what he tried to do.
You know, when Patrick Mahomes becomes the great Patrick Mahomes, you know, there's a lot of people along for that ride. And that's fine. You know, that's the way it works in the NFL. If you're associated with greatness, sometimes that greatness kind of leeches off onto you, and people think you're going to be able to recreate that with whomever our quarterback is. Now, the Giants have a young quarterback who obviously a lot of people think very highly of. He's a risk taker. He's got a little Mahomes in him. He's got a little Lamar in him. I would have hired Cliff Kingsbury myself if I was the Giants for that job, but I don't think this is an incompetent hire. I think this is a decent hire. And like you and I were talking about before the show, he's a guy that people will like, and then they'll decide whether or not to criticize him based on whether Jaxson Dart becomes a good quarterback or not.
Yeah, that is how it's going to be ultimately judged. Yeah. And I will say this, like Matt Nagy, when he started, was super refreshing. Like Matt Nagy will ace, the first time he's on your show, the first time he meets the New York media. He was the toast of the town. He wore George Halas's fedora to his first game. It was in the centennial season of the Chicago Bears.
It's the greatest ass kissing move I've ever heard in my life. It's great.
It gets better. Yeah. His first ever play call in the opening game of his first year. They're playing the Green Bay Packers, and first play call was the T formation, an ode to 1920s football. So he will talk about the Mara family, and he will talk about the New York Football Giants, and he will study the history, and he'll pander a little bit. And it was refreshing, and it was new, and it was innovative, and it was offensive. And then by the end, it was double talk and cliched. And frankly, I think some of the century-old weird Bearsness beat him down. The Chicago medium beat him down. Failure beat him down. The fact that he didn't have Andy Reid. The fact that Trubisky wasn't Patrick Mahomes. Right. He got thrown into the deep end of the pool, and he figured out that he wasn't able to swim on his own. But he is a smart guy. He is a well-liked guy. Mahomes loves him, on a personal level. They golf together in the offseason. He really does respect him as a person and as a coach. So I do think that he's the type of profile that could be better on his second go around when he learned what he didn't know before. But again, I would have loved this hire much more if he would have went and been the passing game coordinator for the Rams, or if he would have worked with Kevin O'Connell, or if he would have just diversified his skill set a little bit, because now he gets a job working with a guy who his only reference needed to be Andy Reid. Again, right. John Harbaugh didn't need to call anyone in Chicago because he would just call Andy Reid. And so I still feel like Matt Nagy has skipped one step here in the whole process. But I do really like him, and he is really smart. So I'm hoping that, he learned what he didn't know.
And obviously play calling is what we're talking about here. And I want to ask you, maybe give some more specifics, because I don't remember it, not being a Bears fan. There was multiple times throughout his tenure where he would give up the play calling, take it back. Anything specific in that time period where, what was the point of that? Did it impact the team? Was it just because, he didn't have enough of his eye on the whole prize, or whatever coaches talked about when they give up play calling? What was happening during that time when he was giving up, taking back play calling? Because it happened several different times along his tenure.
Yeah, it was grasping at straws.
Yeah,
it was again, not to use the deep end of the pool analogy, but it was just it got overwhelming. The staff wasn't good, because it ended up being this is a lame duck staff, and then Trubisky had failed, and then they needed to they traded up in the draft for Justin Fields. And so then it was, okay, so he's not supposed to play right away, but then he also played sooner than it was supposed to. And so the Bears went through this crazy tenure where coach, GM, and quarterback were never on the same cycle. John Fox is the quarterback, and he doesn't even know that they're drafting Mitch Trubisky, and then they fire John Fox, and now it's Matt Nagy for Trubisky, and then they move on from Trubisky, and it's a new GM, and they're drafting Justin Fields, and so they were never all aligned, and so Matt Nagy was grasping it. He always believed that he should be the play caller. He's taking this job because he will be the unquestioned play caller in New York. That is why he's taking the job. He believes he is a elite level play caller who just hasn't had the opportunity to prove it. And honestly, C-Mac, that might be true. It just was impossible to show it in Chicago with the quarterback play that he had. If you injected him with true serum, it would be And I don't think I was really the problem there. These quarterbacks weren't able to execute my system.
I've said that about so many co-hosts I've had.
Yeah, me, right? Yeah, I think you said it about me.
Danny Parkins. You can see Danny from 5 to 6 every afternoon with Nick Wright and the gang and Willie Colon and Coach Mangini, et cetera, on FS1. And he and I, of course, did Breakfast Bowl together on FS1. Before I let you go, have you gotten over the fact yet that Ben Johnson didn't go for 2 when he should have gone for 2 and win the game after what amounted to a Hail Mary touchdown?
Hey, I'm okay.
You okay with that?
Yeah, we got the coach, we got the quarterback. Beat the Packers twice.
Okay.
It was an amazing.
I saw you at the game before that. I don't think you were at that game, right?
No, yeah, I was at the Packers game.
Yeah.
I did not go back for the Rams game. I was the good dad who was there for my kid's 6th birthday for Bears Rams. But yeah, listen, I thought it was reasonable. Their short yardage had stunk. Loveland got hurt. Their defense stopped Stafford in overtime.
Yes. They had a shot.
It worked out. They had a shot. They just weren't able to execute. And I want to say one more thing about Matt Nagy real quick. People are going to refer to him as a former coach of the year because it is objectively true. But Vic Fangio won that Coach of the Year award. Like, if you go back and look at it, Mitch Trubisky was like 24 touchdowns, 12 picks. He was fine. That defense had 36 takeaways that year. That was Khalil Mack's first year. They were, Eddie Jackson led the league in interceptions or whatever it was. Like, that was a Vic Fangio Coach of the Year award that they just gave to him. So when people, he won Coach of the Year, it's like, yeah. Kind of.
And are we banding together? Because I'm getting a lot of emails and text messages that all Syracuse alumni should be asking for Adrian Autry to be fired now. Have you gotten these text messages as well?
I just respect Syracuse alums. I respect those who still care.
Yeah, like on that.
The basketball program has been so bad for so long. It was on the front page of ESPN.com today. Like, Carmelo Anthony is like,
he's upset.
He's seemingly upset. It's like, I wonder why. They stink.
So when I was at Syracuse a long time ago, we had Jim Boeheim over my fraternity for dinner. And this is the year where the Syracuse thinks they have Kenny Anderson. Kenny Anderson's coming to Syracuse. They left a couple brown bags of cash at his mother's apartment door in Left Rock City. And we wind up, of course, not getting Kenny Anderson. He goes to Georgia Tech. And we get Red/Adrian Autry. And we're at this dinner with Jim Boeheim. And one of the guys in the house goes, Jim, your thoughts on losing Kenny Anderson to Adrian Autry? Like, that sucks, right? And Jim Boeheim goes, mark my words, Red Autry will be twice the basketball player Kenny Anderson could ever hope to be. And that day, I fell out of love with Syracuse basketball. It's a long time ago.
That is a long time ago. They went to the NIT twice in my 4 years, so I was there for the beginning.
Were you at the Garden for the 5 OT game? Didn't you go to that?
Yeah, 6 OT game. Yeah,
6, yeah.
That was my senior year. I was the last one in the Garden that night with like the cleanup crew because we did the post game show on the famous Syracuse radio station WAER. So I was on until like 2:30 in the morning.
I left that game early.
Classic. Of course you did.
I did. Anyhow, good to see you. Best to your family.
Thank you, Danny.
Keep doing your thing on FS1. I'll talk to you soon, pal.
All right, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Be good. Danny Parkins, everybody. The king of Chicago, the Chicago kid, and all over the Matt Nagy thing. Now, that's the guy that saw Matt Nagy up close and personal for 4 years. Do you feel any different at all based on your initial opinion on getting him? Here's what and if I could just add one thing. Here's what I actually loved about what Danny just said. Matt Nagy thinks he's an elite play caller. That should make you happy.
Yeah. No, it does. I mean, listen, I like the confidence. I do understand his point. He went back to the safety net of Andy Reid, and he didn't have to call plays. I get that, right? You want someone to challenge it and maybe learn a different thing as opposed to just going back to Andy Reid. But I think, listen, I wasn't going to get into all the different aspects of it because it's him as a head coach, but he won there. They acknowledged that he was liked. The quarterbacks liked him. Like, I think he did a better job now that years removed from the situation. And you mentioned Eberflus after him. I think he did a good job. I thought Danny was fair. I don't think he killed him. I don't think he called him an idiot. I think he called him a good coach.
I think because he's likable. Yeah. I think Chicago liked him as a person. Yeah. And then when, it went south, like we all do it here. Yeah. You want to get rid of the guy badly and, you say dumb things and you kind of reinvent what the guy did and didn't do. Like you said, he did leave with the winning record.
Right.
Now, he didn't have a great quarterback. He loved Trubisky. thought he was going to make Mitch Trubisky the greatest quarterback in the NFC.
Right.
And obviously just never panned out.